Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for clicking on the video and joining me. My name is Leslie, and today we're going to get into Before the 90 Days, Season 6, Episode 8, Misunderstood. Make sure to let me know what you thought about this one down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. So this time I want to start with Statler and Dempsey. The girls are in the taxi cab getting acquainted, and Statler's definitely laying on the charm, telling her how beautiful and gorgeous and attractive she is. And after 7 months of talking, she finally got to meet Dempsey, and she's way better in person than she even could have imagined. And she's feeling better, and her anxiety has washed away completely. And they're being silly, like, "Are you happy to see me? I'm ecstatic. Ex-Statler, haha." They're making jokes, and they're driving, and they have an awkward silence that makes them laugh and talk again about how awkward they are. And Dempsey says that after all the travel and the last couple days, she's happy to be with her, but also how her being there is very surreal because she only ever knew her online, and now here she is in the flesh. So she's really nervous. Statler brings her to the room, and she gives her a small tour of the hotel. She shows her the stone and the bed. And now it's gift exchange time. And Dempsey hands her a package, and she can just smell from the package that it's an insect. And she's so happy. It's some bug that camouflages itself to look like a leaf. And then they talk about how cool it is and how she can't believe that she carried it all the way from Thailand because they smell so bad. And it turns out that they both thought the smell was from Dempsey's dirty laundry, but it wasn't. And, she also got her a case with a scorpion and a bunch of dead beetles. She said she even detoured her trip to get them for her. So she was very thoughtful about it, and she put a lot of effort into this gift, right? And then Statler's like, "Well, I think I got you a gift I would want, and I'm now realizing that, so here it is." And she said she's embarrassed now to give it to her. She seems pretty mortified. So she gets the gift, and it's an insect, but a metal one. And Dempsey in the interview is like, "She got me a little metal ant as our first gift." I don't know what she was thinking, But Statler's mortified and is like, "So, should we go to bed now?" And before they go to bed, Dempsey wants to shower. Statler's disappointed that she wants to do that alone, and I don't understand why. Also, she can't stop staring at Dempsey like a piece of meat. And, it's been months of build-up, so she's ready. But it's really up to Dempsey what's going to happen. 20 minutes later, she's out of the shower. Statler's drooling over her booty because it's a perfect peach, and she's just amazed at all of its glory. And poor Dempsey is blushing, feeling awkward. Turns down Statler's offer for a kiss. Statler's like, "So there's no chance of happy time?" And, that's a no from Dempsey. And in the interview, she's like, "That's not happening. They haven't even kissed yet." And she's a little surprised that Statler's asking her about sex already. For her, sex is intimate, and she wants to get to know her better and take things slow. And, that's definitely a good idea. I think Statler's done the opposite of that in the past, and it hasn't worked out for her. But then, when we get back to them, they wake up the next morning. Statler just keeps saying, "What a night." What a night. How she's exhausted, but mostly physically. They're smiling and blushing, so I'm guessing, they did the thing. apparently they had their first kiss. It wasn't great. It was all teeth mostly. But then they got better at it. And once they did that and they got good at it, they, started doing other things. They definitely, went all the way in some forms. And Statler's going on about her booty still and how she wants to worship it at an altar and how other areas of her are even better. Everything tastes great. And she thinks that's due to her vegan diet because Statler's never had a vegan before. So, way to check that off the list. Dempsey said she was happy to just spoon and sleep, and she doesn't often sleep with people so fast, but they kissed and things just kept progressing. She said she could feel the connection. They waited 7 months, so she figured why not. They start talking about waxing jobs and, how they like that, and Dempsey's saying she didn't wax, and Statler's like making a joke, like, oh, let me feel it again to make sure. And Dempsey declines, and she's like, that's enough about the sex talk. And I'm glad somebody said it. Like, that's all it is innuendos with this woman. And then, Statler's like, it's all about the sex talk, isn't it? Dempsey's glad it happened, and she does feel it brought them closer. But she feels like Statler's more experienced in the bedroom, and that makes her insecure. Statler's been to parties and things with BDSM type of things, and she's afraid she'll be bored if her needs aren't met. So I kind of feel that she was pressured. She pressured herself into moving faster sexually than she would have because she wants to kind of like impress her and be a cool kid, and she loves her in some ways, even though they just met. So from there, they're having breakfast in bed, and we find out they're going to Dempsey's home that's on a farm. It's going to be like a whole new world for Statler, and Dempsey's worried she won't be able to adjust to the kind of off-the-grid lifestyle that she lives. Statler gets her way this time. They share a shower. But while that's happening, she's saying, Dempsey lives in the middle of nowhere. So she's nervous and anxious and unexcited to stay there. And I thought she wanted to move there 2 weeks ago, or in 2 weeks. She was just saying if it went well, she's going to move there. But now she's unexcited to see her potential home. So, anyway, Statler's not sure of the circumstances. She's worried about space. Will she be comfy? Will she be cold? She's a city girl. She's not used to these things. And she's also afraid to offend her if they get there and she's not into it. But, they're off. They're on their way to her home. Dempsey thinks things are going well. She's excited to get closer to Statler. Her home is a 2-hour ride away, and it's just out of the city and quiet. Dempsey's been gone for 5 weeks, so she hasn't had time to clean or sage and get rid of the stuck energies. And she's never had anyone stay in her caravan, so she's really nervous. Statler wants to know about meeting her friends and dad because she knows how important her dad is and that they're best friends, and she wants to meet him. And she tells her, she hasn't really told her dad much about it. And that makes Statler concerned because she doesn't know if she's important to her now. She asks, did your dad like any of your past girlfriends? And she's like, one no, one yes, that other one no. And she tells us she didn't tell her dad about her relationship with Statler because he is very protective of her. And she just wants to get to know her better in person before she tells her dad. And I think that's fair. Everyone should be able to go at their own speed and pace. So they finally arrive to the home, or the caravan, and, it's pitch black there. Statler's worried about animals, but, she makes it inside. I'm surprised she didn't do the banging stick trick from the Parent Trap. That might have helped. So inside, Dempsey's giving her a tour. Statler's impressed, but she thinks that it's kind of small for 2 people. She says, Dempsey's unaware of her plans, that if things go well, she wants to move there, but it's definitely small for 2 people. She has a toilet room, but that can only be used for number 1. Number 2, it's a little bit of a journey to get there. Again, that makes Statler nervous too, because she has irritable bowels, and the bathroom being so far might be an issue, but I'm sure she'll work it out. So, they have a seat on the couch, and she's saying, tomorrow we'll get logs for the fire and like food and all of that stuff. They're sitting there, they're kind of hungry, but she hasn't been there in 5 weeks, so there's no groceries. So they eat the chocolate that Dempsey gave Statler. That's their dinner. And just after this short day or so, day and a half together, Statler's convinced this is the one for her, and she's just ready to spend their lives together. But I think she's ready to spend their lives together in the way that she wants and not the way that Dempsey wants. And I'm a little over all the constant sex talk and her hitting on her and making her uncomfortable with that. It feels like, I'm sure she likes it to a point, it's flattering, but it just becomes a little much. And she seems I feel she's a little self-centered, and I felt really like that gift was just no bueno. I was not a fan of the metal ant. I don't know why she thought that was a great idea. All right, then, let's move on to Gino and Jasmine. They are heading off to couples therapy. Jasmine says they don't have sex, they aren't romantic, and now Gino thinks she betrayed his trust by being friends with her ex. And she did, She feels miserable and desperate and sad and concerned about their relationship. And, they just haven't been able to fix it on their own. The therapist starts off saying, it's going to take more than 1 session, that she's not sure that they're going to accomplish everything that they have in their heads that they want to accomplish. And Gino's like, yeah, no way. This ain't a 1 session problems. So they're going to try to get something done today. They're doing a couch interview, and Gino says since he's been there, it's been rough. He really thought things would go better, and it's a good thing that they're going to do this and talk about what's changed. The therapist would like to know about them. Jasmine says, they've been dating 2.5 years. They're engaged, and soon she's headed off to America to marry him. But they've been waiting for the visa for 12 months. And in her opinion, that's what's making their relationship hard. They can't really talk without yelling at each other. And she thinks Gino would agree. Gino's like, yeah, but I gotta bring up Jasmine and her mean, hateful comments she makes to him all the time. And he also found out that she's been seeing, calling, texting her ex, and, they live in the same building. Woohoo. He can't barely get that out, and Jasmine butts in. I see him to talk about him, referring to Gino, and they just have, friendly meetings. And she's like, they became friends because they have good communicating skills. And she sees him as a friend, not an ex. And, last time he was the best lover she ever had. And then she was, they were friends with benefits. And now they just communicate well. So I can see why Gino's worried. This guy's just whatever Jasmine needs him to be, really. She says that she told Dan that she's frustrated and wants more intimacy. And she brings up that she isn't sexually satisfied in the relationship. And every time he tries, she tries, he pushes her away. And he has even commented on her private areas. This therapist has a lot to work with, so I hope that she had her Wheaties that day. And they're both just trying to sound innocent to me, or, less guilty. And, Jasmine is. She says a few days ago she's taking a shower and she wanted to be, sexy, and he started gagging. Gino immediately says, no, he wasn't. He was trying to talk to her, and she was just showing herself off. And he said he told her he was trying to talk to her. And that definitely seems accurate, because when he just got to Panama, they were in the taxi, and he's like, oh, look at the mountains. And she's like, look at my mountains. And then she's giving him a tour of the apartment, and she's like, no, all you need to do is see the bed, just look at that. That's all it's been with her, no matter what he's trying to say. And, Jasmine responds with like, well, why do you have to say that? He says he likes her parts, but, he was trying to talk. The therapist finally gets to chime in at this point, and she says, physically Jasmine felt rejected. She says, Jasmine says she felt, not wanted, not good enough, ugly. And she just has insecurities and abandonment issues since her dad walked out when she was 3. And now she doesn't handle rejection well. She starts, tearing up. She tells him she doesn't take rejection easily. He makes her feel unwanted and ugly, and all she wants is love. And I don't understand why, she only equals love to sex. I mean, it's a part of it, but that's not all love is. At least, it shouldn't be. So then she's in her interview. She says her first toxic relationship she had with a man was with her dad. She has a lot of abandonment issues. And I'm just wondering, if she knows all this, why she never tried to get help or therapy before. Like, she just accepts that how she is. Anybody can work on these things if they really want to, because it's miserable to feel like this. She also says when she loves a person, she feels so scared of losing that person and not having that love that she'll do anything to feel worth. And Gino, he just doesn't know how much he's hurting her in this moment. She brings up, that they're almost never intimate. In 2 years, they've only made it through the finish line 7 times. He's like, if you want that, you need to stop arguing every day and stop putting me down. And then the therapist interrupts. And she tells Gino that she understands what he's saying, but he might get that if he bonds with her intimately. And he's like, yeah, but she's going to have to work on those things. And now he's worried that the therapist is saying, if you're more intimate with her, she might act better, will make Jasmine think she doesn't need to work on these things. And the therapist is like, oh, is it coming through that way? And yeah, Gino thinks so. He doesn't want her to think she doesn't have to work on things. And he says there was a time that, their love life, their intimate life was good, and they still had these problems. And then she goes, my worst sex has been with Gino. And he's like, these are the comments that make me not want to be with her. And I don't think anyone would want to after all the things she said to him. Then the therapist, she says, it's one thing to disagree, but it's another thing to insult. She tells Jasmine, she needs to step away and write it down, because all of this is coming out in the meanest way possible. They need to work on the feeling of vengeance and revenge, because that builds up the bad feelings. She tells Gino, it's easiest to work on what you can do, because he isn't the one with the anger issues. So he needs to figure out, what he can do to not make her blow up. Or, if he sees her escalating, how can he put the fire out? I think the sister figured that out by giving her water. So Gino's like, he can try to stay more calm and not add gas to the fire. And, she also tells Jasmine, when you want to work on a relationship and you want it to work, you need to sacrifice. And now that she knows that Gino's hurt by Dan, what is she willing to do to fix that? She's like, if Gino wants Jasmine to not speak to him again, and even though it would hurt her and Dan, and, she'll do it. But if she didn't care for Gino, she wouldn't be there in therapy. And I'm sure now that she said that, she would give in and not talk to him. He's not going to make her do it. He always backs down. I don't know that for sure, but that's my prediction. She leaves them with the idea of not talking about this all the time. Start building good memories so they can tolerate the bad times better. And, Gino's willing to work on things, but he's not convinced. He definitely needs some more actions for Jasmine. I really think Gino's hitting a point right now where he's like realizing what his future's going to be like. And I think after all the horrible things she said to him and all the sneaky manipulative type things she's done, he's over it to a point where she needs to now put in effort. And, I'm sure they'll figure it out. They should definitely keep going to therapy. Okay, let's go on to Amanda and Rasvin. I can't remember the last time we saw these two. And, I didn't really miss them. So, another morning with these two lovebirds. And she's ordering him to, get over there and help her make coffee. She doesn't know how to use the machine. She calls what he has a European coffee maker pod thing. But I'm pretty sure it's just a Keurig. They're very popular. So, she seems to be the same as always, complaining about everything, ordering him around. Rasvin says, so far being with her is not how he expected it to be. He was expecting to make love non-stop, go out, have fun. And, he understands that she's being careful, but he does wish that she was more open. We find out, it's her monthly time. And, he's like, well, we haven't been intimate for 4 days and now probably another week. And she's like, okay, so what? And he thinks they should go ahead with it anyways because a real man has his sword with blood, I guess. Me, not a fan. But anyway, she thinks that he hopes they will connect emotionally more if they have sex. But she's just not comfortable with it after her long marriage and then losing her husband. He's like, okay, well, let's go to town. She has him, she's like, go hand me my mirror. She just wants to order him around and complain. And, it's scary for her, I guess, to be with someone who isn't her husband. She learned everything with him. And I can understand that. And this is why she should have taken more time to get over her husband before she started dating. Because I really believe that Rasvin has good intentions and he's trying everything in his power to be a good guy and a good partner and to make her comfortable. From what I've seen. And she's just full of roadblocks and she just is rude to him and she has an attitude and nothing makes her happy. Speaking of nothing makes her happy, she tells him, she knows he wanted to go swimming, but she absolutely hates the bathing suit that he got her. Another shocker. So they're going to return it. He says before she came, he wanted to get her a gift, so he thought a bikini would be nice. She says she doesn't like the top. And, it was nice of him to get her a gift, but she hasn't gotten a gift from a man who isn't her husband, so she feels guilty. Everything she says makes her feel guilty because of her husband. And like I said, that's understandable, but she needs to realize that she's playing with someone else's emotions here. She's just not ready to date, and this is not fair to do to him. even on the way out, she complains about his big piles of shoes by the door. Like, that's all I hear from her. So, I guess, you know, she does have her period, so she could be a little bitchy, but come on. Like, this guy's really trying. So, they head to the store to return the bathing suit, and the lady's like, no problem, tells him to pick another one. He tells Amanda, and they start looking around. She decides on one, and he's like, that's the first one that he was going to get her. But the lady changed his mind, and the lady agrees with him. She's like, yeah, it's true. And Amanda doesn't believe it, you know, but it's true. She asks if Amanda likes Romania, and she does. And he says he told the shop lady all about her because he was so excited. The lady asks if Amanda would live there, and she says no because she has kids. And she says, you know, she looks great for a mother of 2 kids. And she brings up they could have kids together, and he kind of laughs, and he's like, yeah, 3 or 4 more. He tells Amanda what they were saying, and she's like, what? No. No more kids. Amanda's like, so you told her about our relationship when you bought the bathing suit? He's like, yeah, I was excited. She seems confused by that. I don't understand. Other people on this show have problems that their partner tells nobody about them, and she's excited. She's mad that he's overexcited and telling people about her, I guess. So, in her interview, she says she can't tell if Rasvin is being serious when he tells the shopkeeper he wants 3 or 4 kids, but she hopes that he's joking. Apparently, when they first started talking, she asked him if he wanted kids, and he said it didn't matter. So she hopes that's still the case, because right now she definitely doesn't want any more kids. And, you know, on that note, the shopkeeper is like, I wish you well, and sends them on their way. I think she's done with the drama. Later, Amanda decides to go out for some fresh air. We find out she's still taken aback by his comment about wanting children of his own. She understands why, but she's surprised that he would say that after she's been very clear she doesn't want more kids. So now she feels misled, and it's making her think twice. She calls her sister to catch up, and she tells her he's loving and holds her hand, and he's even cuter in person. The sister's like, well, he's already hot online. How much hotter can he get? And she's like, 100 times more. She tells her, you know, they haven't had sex yet. And the sister's like, why? Are you thinking about Jason? Which is her husband that passed. And, you know, she's like, yeah, it's hard. She has thoughts that she's doing something she shouldn't be. But she's starting to get over that. You know, they've had some communication problems. For example, on the second day, he told her he has a visa appointment. And the sister's like, wait, I thought he had to wait a year. And she says, no. She explained that he wanted to come a week after she leaves. And she told him that was way too soon. And she just doesn't feel like he's ready to see her as a mom. That it'll probably be hard for him to see. And he told her he might want kids in the future. And when they met, he said he was fine either way. And she said, good, because I'm done. And the sister, a.k.a. the voice of reason, is like, this is a conversation that doesn't need to happen yet. You know, you're looking too far in the future. And she's like, it doesn't have to be forever. And, you know, she said, it does if it's your, and she almost said soulmate, but stopped and said, person you're supposed to be with. And the sister's like, is it though? But, you know, that's what Amanda's there to find out. She asked her if Rasvin proposed tonight, what she would say. And she's like, he wouldn't do it today, but I think he would wait and see how the weeks go. But, you know, that wasn't the question. You know, the question was, if he proposed to you, what would you say? Not, do you think he will? But, Amanda just thought everything was going to be great and perfect, and it's not. The sister's like, look, have fun, just get to know him, let him get to know you. She's realizing they don't know each other as well as she thought. And she thinks in new relationships, there's some things you don't fully let go of until you can trust them. It's too soon for her to be completely vulnerable. And she's trying, but he needs to show her she can trust him. And I think he's really trying to do that. And I also think she needs to give him a break about making a joke about having 3 or 4 more kids. I think when men are in love, they usually want to procreate. And they imagine, like, you being a mother to their kids. They want to, like, spread their seed, right? And he's only, like, 26 or something. He's allowed to change his mind about whether or not he wants children. Some people, when they were 24, couldn't imagine having kids. When I was 24, I had my first kid, and I thought, dang, I'm getting old. Which, I was wrong, by the way. But she's just not ready for this. And I'm sure in her head, she can't imagine having a child with someone who isn't her husband. And that's fine. And she might never change her mind. She might never feel that way. But can't rule out that she might marry someone who wants a kid. And it wouldn't be fair for her to, just make that decision for them. She needs to talk to him. But the sister's absolutely right. Like, these are way future conversations. Like, she can't even, open up to be intimate with him yet, or even let her guard down enough. She's very high strung. So I have some sympathy for this guy. Hopefully he doesn't make me regret it. All right. Thank you, everyone who's still listening to me. If you are, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and move on to David and Sheila. Our couple is, packing up at the hotel. David's asking her if he likes his shirt, but I'm not sure she gets what he's trying to say. She tries to tell him he can bring it, and that's not working, so, she gets the handy-dandy phone amp. She asks him if he's ready to meet her parents later. He says kinda yes, kinda no. He says he's been there a few days, and today's the day he gets to meet the family. He's, excited to see where she comes from and what her daily life looks like there. He tells her he has a gift for her son. She hopes that the son likes David, even if he can't sign and communicate, because, it's important that they connect. He wants them to meet, but she doesn't. Oh, she wants them to meet, but she doesn't want to bring David to her home because her family's so poor and she doesn't want to scare him away. Then we find out that David hired an interpreter who would go with them to her parents to help. And this is a wonderful idea. More people should try that. He says, he has one chance to make a good impression on her family, so he hired an interpreter. Then they can all understand each other. Sheila was not happy about him hiring an interpreter. She knows, that communication hasn't been easy, but she doesn't want a stranger there as they're trying to get to know each other. But she has to respect his decision. They meet her. We find out her name is Amy. She shows, her sign name and that she's an interpreter. Sheila does not look happy in the interview when the 3 of them are sitting there together. David says it's easier when she's there rather than using phones. And, I just want to take a moment to appreciate this girl, Amy, because she can speak at least 3 languages. English. Do they speak Mandarin in the Philippines? And sign language. So that's pretty impressive. Sheila starts asking her questions about her helping to communicate with her parents. Sheila's saying, this is hard for her because Amy's good at signing and she's young and she feels jealous. She would just rather have a man interpreter and not a girl. David's like, if you want to practice sign language, you can practice with Amy. And then Sheila tries to sign a little. And then we cut over to an interview with Amy, who says Sheila only knows a few signs, and if she was with someone who only spoke ASL, she would learn their language. And she also said when she learned to sign that it took her a month, which I think that's impressive as well, because I am not sure I could accomplish that. David asked her if she has ever been married, and she hasn't. He said, he was curious. Sheila's saying that watching them communicate and her talking to her boyfriend made her feel, really jealous, and she just starts crying. She's jealous, she's crying, she doesn't know why he chose a young girl, and she's afraid that he will want to go with her. And, with that, they take off, they go get their things from the hotel. The producers ask if she needs to talk to David about this, and she says no. She doesn't want to show him this, and she doesn't want them to fight. They all pile into the van. David's excited. They plan to stay a few nights with her family so they can get to know each other. He asks, is there anything he needs to know before he gets there? She says, it's going to be hot and sweaty, and there's a chamber pot downstairs to use for a bathroom. She asks if that bothers him. He says no. She loves him. She wants a family with him. And she isn't after his money, but she is worried that he's going to think that because of her home. So they're walking through this narrow pathway to her house. He says the house are all shanties. It's extreme poverty, sewage water everywhere, smells bad. It just makes him feel really sad. They make it to her house. She introduces David and his interpreter to her dad. And, she wants to show him the house first before they talk to the dad more. She shows him the shower, which is actually, a bucket and a spout in the wall. We see the little kitchen area. And after that, she asks if, he wants to go up and meet her mom. And he does, and he's curious to see upstairs. And they meet the mom, and Sheila has to yell everything in her ear. And she just kind of smiles and nods a lot. We find out that Sheila's lived in this home her whole life, and a typhoon took the roof off. So she got up there and put a shower curtain up on the roof. And, David says her living situation really breaks his heart. He did think there would be some damage, but he never imagined this. And there's, bugs, heat, no water, no walls, no privacy. And he's just never experienced anything like this. I definitely haven't either. I'm sure not many of us have. So they go back downstairs. David's overwhelmed. He has so many questions and concerns, but right now his main one is getting to know her family and, most importantly, her son. Because if they don't get along and like each other, their future will be hard. And, he asked the dad, oh, when did you buy the house? And he's like, I didn't buy it, I built it. And Sheila asked her dad what he thinks of David. And he's like, how can I talk to him if I can't sign? And she's like, that's what the lady's here for. And she's like, does it bother you that he's deaf? And he says he doesn't know him, and he can't talk to him. David thinks, the dad's nervous because he is deaf, and he's probably never met a deaf person before. And out comes her little adorable cutie of a son. And she introduces him to David and tells him he got him a gift. He liked the gift. David says he always loved to play games, and he used to get lost in games as a kid. And that's how he still to this day has a good time. The game is some sort of pinball game. It's really cool, actually. She asks her son if he has questions for David, and he's like, he can't talk. And she's like, no, he's deaf and mute, but we have a translator here. Is that okay? And, he has no questions to ask him, so Sheila sends him to bed. She says, tonight was a disappointment. She wants David to like her family, but they're acting so weird because he's deaf. And I'm sitting here like, they really are acting weird. Like, they didn't know he was deaf. Like, all of a sudden he gets here and they're like, well, I don't know. I can't talk to him, so there's no point. Meanwhile, he literally brought a translator so they could talk to each other. Nobody cares. She had a pretty easy job that evening. Sheila's saying she hopes David proposes to her before the end of this trip, but if he doesn't connect with them, he might have second thoughts. And I don't think that's true. I think that those two actually really love each other, and I think he would propose to her either way. But, at this point, they say goodnight to Amy. She's going to be back on duty in the morning. David says, tonight was awkward. Hopefully tomorrow will be better. They climb up the stairs, lay a blanket on the floor. She says she knows it's his first time sleeping on the floor. And, he's just going to try his best to sleep there. He thinks she's ashamed to show him where she lives, and, he gets that. It doesn't change how he feels, but he understands. And he thinks she should have a lot more faith in him and, told him more about her life and culture, because they're in this together. So, then they go to sleep, and I think that she probably was very nervous and ashamed to have, not just him there, but the camera crew, the translator. I think that's part of what she was nervous about with the translator, not just that she was a woman, but that if it went bad and they got there and David was alarmed by things and asking questions and disgusted by what he saw, she would have to have that filtered through another person as well. Luckily, that didn't happen. He handled it very well. I mean, we've seen plenty of people, Ed, for example, or baby girl Lisa, Angela, whoever it is, be very rude when they go to other countries. So I think he handled it well, and I feel so heartbroken for them that these people have to live like that, and it sure does make me grateful for everything that I have. So hopefully, things get better, but I've seen a little bit of next week. I don't think it's going to get much better for them, and we'll get into that in my next video. All right, next on the Hot Mess Express, we have Violet and Riley. We're back to him repeating the same old questions to Violet that he has kept asking. And the friend, why are you still on the dating app? Violet's like, look, I just want to talk to you. And she's like, I'll talk to you. He's like, no, she asked you a question. And Violet's like, before I answer her, I need to ask you a question. Like, how did you know I'm on the dating page? And he's like, no, it has nothing to do with me. This has to do with, her answer. And she's like, okay, I deleted it. I forgot the password on the app. Apparently Tiffany, is the judge of this situation, because she's like, well, that's not a valid answer. And Violet's like, okay, well, we got problems now. And Riley is saying this is another instance he doesn't believe what she's saying. It's a red flag. Violet's like, you ruined my mood tonight. And he really did. I thought she was going to get a little close to him this evening, and he's just been confrontational since he sat down. I don't even know why he put on that suit. He should have had gym clothes, because he's trying to, spar a little bit here or something. So he's like, you're mad at someone who's like family to me asking you questions. and you're mad because you have to answer them. But, your family can ask me hard questions. And that's valid. And her response is like, well, you came here. And he doesn't care. And, neither do I, because both their families and their questions are important. And she's like, okay, well, we're done talking tonight. He tells Tiffany he's going to call her back. And, she's like, how do you know I went on the app? And, she's curious. And she's like, oh, so you got on the app too, old man. Haha. And he's like, don't you talk down to me. And she's like, fine, we won't talk at all then. If I can't talk down to you, there's no reason. And, he's like, make like Michael Jackson and beat it. And she's like, you said I would get married to you, not your family. And he's yelling like, bye, you waste my time. Like, I'm telling you, he came here ready to fight. Like, he talked to Tiffany before this date or something. Like, not sure why, because this is what he wanted. A nice date, her to open up. And he just came in like a wrecking ball, on one. She just can't believe he would ask her that or try to force her to answer questions. She says even if he asks her something and she doesn't want to answer, she has that right. And she, certainly has that right for someone who isn't family, who isn't really his family, to not answer their questions. And that's true. That goes for everybody. If you don't want to answer something, you don't have to. We just feel obligated to, usually. So, she says he's disrespectful, rude. He had no right to do that. He calls Tiffany back. He's like, thank you. Because, Violet just showed her ass. And, I don't feel that way. I think she stood up for herself. And she got defensive after walking into an ambush. That was too much for him. That's the last straw. He's done. He came there trying to make it work with his best intentions. But, it's Violet's way or the highway, and he doesn't have to and won't put up with it. Violet was all prepared to have a good night, but Riley acted like a child and a psycho. She's mad that he didn't, speak well of her. She felt interrogated, like Riley and Tiffany were the police. And, he didn't protect her, stand up for her. And, I agree. So with that, she's just out of there. And I don't blame her. And, I'm sure these two will have some other argument in the future. But in this case, I have to be on Team Violet. Let me know whose team you guys are on. All right. It's time for Misha and Nicola. We start off with them in the car. Misha's, asking him what's up with his hanging monkeys. He's like, I just like monkeys. What's wrong with monkeys? Misha says last night they had a really great night in downtown Haifa with all the dancing and sin that was going on. But now she feels that, they're moving out of the desert and on the right track. I don't know what that means. But enough of that. On today's episode of Catholic 101, we find out that they're going to a Catholic village. If we go back in history, the Crusaders lived there. It's an important place because that's where Nicola goes to church and also where his friend Wasim lives. So, after he gives her the tour, he plans to introduce her to him. Well played, Nicola. Introduce her to a person who knows about all of this. She says she wishes she has a hairdryer because he's so sweaty, and she tells him not to lift up his arms. And I remember he did have serious armpit sweat marks when he was blocking the car windows when she was changing, so it's an ongoing issue. I think if he would get Botox in his armpits, that would help. That's what I've heard. I don't have that issue. So, he brings her into the church he prays in every Sunday. It's definitely beautiful. he thinks it's very important for her to see where he prays every week. So, he's showing her around. They grow up on the roof. He's like, look at the view, Misha. You see this mountain over here? That's where the sea is that Jesus walked on water. And the thing with the fish and the loaves. How does anyone know that that's the spot for sure, though? Like, how do you know that's where he walked on water? How do you know? But anyway, she definitely says she feels closer to God and her faith here. They decide to go back in. He doesn't let her go down the stairs first. He's like, you can just follow me. It's dangerous. He calls her sweetie pie. So at least he was being a little thoughtful. He's, just overjoyed to show her all these holy places. He feels like there are things every Catholic needs to see. We find out that Misha and Wasim have met before on the phone, and today they get to meet in person. He meets up with him. He's like, hi, where's Misha? And he's like, she's over there playing with a stray cat. Sure enough, she was. So they go over to see her, and she runs up with the cat in her arms, and she's very excited to meet him. She hugs him and is like arching back, holding the cat on her chest. And Nicola gets annoyed, tells her to put the cat down. She doesn't want to. He's like, come on, put it on the cat, And I gotta agree with him for a moment here, because she wanted to meet people in his life so bad, and now she's paying more attention to the cat than his friend. So then he says every cat she sees on the street, she tries to be his mother, and he hates it. And now the first time she meets his friend, she's holding a cat instead of talking to him. She hands off the kitten to Wasim and tells him she hopes to meet his wife. But, she's busy at home with the baby. Nicola asks her to tell him all the places he's taken her in Israel. And hopefully she gets it all right, because it is test time. So she says, they went to Nazareth. They talk about how beautiful the view was. He brings up the hotel and how messy it is and how it looks like Tarzan lives there. Misha looks offended, but Nicola keeps going. He says she brought with her all of America and made a mess in his room. And, it's their room. His room is at his mother's house. And just as he's about to keep trash talking her, the friend's wife shows up to save the day. And he says how he has told his wife all about her, and he asks if it's, different being with Nicola in person than on the phone. She says she had no idea going there how Nicola would be with her as like a woman near him, but she thinks that day by day they're working through things. Nicola says she's crazy about his mom and his brother, and whether or not he's told them about her yet. And she's like, well, wait, my whole family knows about him, and when I got here I found out his older brother didn't know about me either. And Wasim's like, well, what can you do for her to make her happy, especially with his family? And he's like, no, leave the family out of this. It's about her and me, not them. And Misha's like, well, wait, I like the question. How can you make me happy in that department? So just think about it. He completely disregards her and is like, all the sacrifices I've made for her in 48 hours, and still she begs about my mom and brother. What sacrifices? And then he dismisses her again, like, crazy Misha. This guy's so frustrating. In her interview, she's like, it's a little wearing. He calls me crazy for wanting to meet his family before spending, her whole life with him. And she says she wished he would have taken this meeting to show what they have built up for 7 years and be excited about them. But no, he's being dismissive and insulting. And she hasn't seen this before, so she's real concerned. And that's true. He should be like, This is Misha. She's amazing. Can you believe how beautiful she is? She flew all the way over here. But no, he's like, I've made so many sacrifices in 2 days and you messed up my nice hotel room. Like, get over it. And then it gets worse. It just gets worse because later they get back to the hotel. They're tired. She's going to go ahead and change. She wants him to change, but, he doesn't seem to think he smells. She's still taken aback by the meeting. She expected him to be excited and happy, and he just definitely was not. And she's done changing. He asked how was her day. She said that she gets a heavy heart, and that's because he isn't used to having a woman around him. She, asked if he's listening. Usually he isn't. She wants to feel like he's proud and happy and cares that she's there. He says that he is, and then she starts crying. Oh, she starts saying after this long and is crying, and he's like, oh my God, you're crying again. And she's like, just let me be me, and this guy, he uses the Lord's name in vain a lot for someone worried about dancing. Dancing did not make it into the commandments, but I believe thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain is one of the 10. So maybe he should think about that. So then he tells her she's too emotional. And she's like, it's better if someone, is upset to hug them instead of saying they're emotional. He tries to hug her. She tells him no. She needs him to learn to act from the heart. She, can't constantly tell him how to treat her. And, imagine what it would be like for her to live her life feeling she's with someone who doesn't care. And he's like, of course I care. He's like, this last 4 days, wherever you wanted to go, I took you. And she's like, look, man, we aren't talking about driving me places. Anyone can be a tour guide. He's like, what do you want, hugs? He thinks she's a victim and wants to change him, and she knows everything because she has experience. He says he sees her problems too, but he doesn't dwell on that because, he's like Jesus on the cross, absorbing persecution and humility. I just hate this guy. He's like, I don't lie about stuff. Oh, I don't like stuff about you, but I stay quiet. I don't like the 10 hours of makeup, all the messy clothes. But he says nothing. So maybe she needs to change her attitude and not blame him. And she's like, man, I'm telling you how I feel about something. And he's like, yeah, me too. And she's like, I didn't attack your character. And in the future, anytime I have an issue with you, you will tell me I'm selfish and you are blaming me. She can never tell him how she feels, and no relationship can work like that. He's just an ass, and he's just an ass, and he's like, we can talk about it in another 10 years. Right now, I'm gonna go shower. And she just thinks it's weird, a small discussion about her feelings turns into she's emotional. And she thinks that she had an idea of what this was, and now she's realizing it was nothing like what she thinks. And if that's true, how could she have been so wrong? And that is because she fell in love with her imagination. And she filled in all the blanks of what it would be like in her perfect fantasy world. And then getting in reality with someone who lives the way he does is hitting her in the face. I don't think this guy deserves to be with her because she seems very smart and in touch with her emotions, and she can communicate properly for the most part. And for him to keep throwing in, I drove you, I sacrificed for you, I went into a bar, whatever, that was the whole point. You should have wanted to show her those things. You should be honored that she's there. She's right. You should be proud. This whole thing should have went differently, and he's treating her terrible, and I don't understand why. But with that said, that's the end of that week. I'm excited to watch the next episode. Like I said, I already did start it, and it starts off extremely sad, so I'm not going to tell you any spoilers here. You'll have to watch my next video on that. Thank you everyone for sticking around. Don't forget to subscribe. I would appreciate that too. I hope that you all have a great day, and don't forget to relax your shoulders and take deep breaths, and be grateful that we have a lot of the comforts that we do, because there are tons of people in the world who don't. So that was a nice reminder of that this week. All right, well, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.